Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back to my book reading section of this channel. And today we continue with our reading of the book Thinkers of the East. More specifically, we'll begin on the chapter entitled Bravery. And as usual, I will now leave it to my virtual assistant to read the chapter for you.
Bravery. A certain widely read and energetic man went to the Hakim Husseini and said, I do not ask for myself, but I am sure that if you were me, and met my friend Dilawar, you would realize that he's nothing less than a Sufi, and that you would welcome him and make him a sharer in your investigations and a partner in your studies, and would revel in his delightful presence. Hakim said, I do indeed admire your bravery, Dilawary, for I have myself never been able to recognize a Sufi in such a manner as you have. Because my circle is proceeding on different assumptions, to welcome Dilawar might be a delight, but it would also mean dealing with him alone, for none of my companions is able to associate with such a man. The journey to adulthood begins with infancy, and if you have a class of infants and you know what their destination will be, this does not mean that you can take on a single extra student, who in any case would need the association of an entire class of his contemporaries, to enable him to make the requisite progress.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back. You've just heard from the Avatar, the story entitled Bravery. And here I'm going to share some of my thoughts about that very short story. I think by now you would have learned that this series of readings is about a very strange book. It is not advocating anything that most of us are used to. In fact, it asks us to actually do a complete mind shift, a paradigm shift of how we think about teaching and learning, how to be a student, what we need, right, and whether we are deserving of any knowledge or whatever kind of knowledge and so on. So this is a very traditional approach. So just an additional word of warning, it is not going to be something that we are going to be used to because of our conditioning in the secular system of education. So today's book, Bravery, all right, it's interesting here that it tells of a tale of a man who went up to a Sufi sage by the name of Hakim Husseini and then made a recommendation to Hakim Husseini saying that he is actually making this recommendation not for himself, right? And he's saying that actually if Hakim Husseini meets this man who's called Dilawar, right, then he will actually be a useful addition to Hakim Husseini's circle of students or circle of learning. Now, this is interesting because he said that he did not ask this for himself. That is, he's trying to say that I'm not doing this as a favor to myself. So then the question then is, whose favor is he trying to do for? Who is he trying to help, or at least think that he's doing a favor for? So of course, it's very clear he thinks he's doing Hakim Husseini a favor, right? Okay, now think about that for a while. Somebody comes to Hakim Husseini, who is a sage, and then tells him, all right, I'm going, basically he's saying, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to recommend someone who is going to be very good for your learning circle, or whatever you want to call it, right? So this is kind of strange. So while you are saying, while this man is saying that he's not doing it for himself, he's not asking any favor, but actually by hoping that Hakim Husseini would accept his friend Dilawar into his into Hakim Husseini's learning circle, is in fact saying that, right, that he knows who to recommend to Hakim Husseini. He is of that status. So this man who made the recommendation thinks pretty highly of himself, actually. Right? He pretends that, or at least he believes that he knows what Hakim Husseini needs for his class. Can you imagine that? It's bordering on the ridiculous. Okay, and then not only that, this man also says that if you meet this Dilawar, you would know that he is a Sufi. Okay, that's another way of saying that I know that he is a Sufi. And now it's for you to know that he is also a Sufi. Okay, right? And then you'll be happy with this man being in your circle. All right, but it's interesting how Hakim Husseini actually responded to this by saying that I admire your bravery, or the word used is dilawary, right? And dilawary means, I guess, bravery. I'm not too sure which language, right? And that's a play on the name his friend, that man's friend, who's supposed to be called Dilawar, supposed to be called Dilawar. So it's a play on that. And he says, "No, I admire your bravery. Do you really think he admires this man's bravery in telling him who he should accept into his circle of learning?" I personally don't think so. I think it is his polite way of saying that, that this is a foolish thing to do. Right? I think some of you may be familiar with the saying, right? There's a thin line of difference between uh, somebody who's brave and somebody who's foolhardy. Right? I think it's clear to see in this case which one is this man who made that recommendation to Hakim Hussein. Right? But he also pointed out something, and he's pointed out that, if even if what that man says is true about Dilawari, all right, then that means he must be somebody of a very high standard of learning, very knowledgeable person. And to add on that person to his learning circle would actually disrupt his learning circle, and it's not too clear whether that person will benefit from it, because his other Hakim Husseini students may not be as high a level as that Dilawar is supposed to be. Okay? So if he attends to Dilawar, then he would have to neglect his students. But he is there teaching his students. And if Dilawar is, after all, supposed to be very high, then he doesn't need Hakim Husseini. Okay? And this story reminds me of something that happened maybe just a few years ago. All right, when somebody who was very enamored by the teaching of a certain teacher, all right, wanted to transfer that teacher's whole curriculum, all right, to another college, an Islamic college of some sort, right? Thinking that the teacher's curriculum would benefit somehow, all right, or fit into the curriculum of that college. When that happened, I thought it was a ridiculous thing to do. Number one, okay, uh, the student who is so enamored by the teaching of that teacher, okay, may think that she or he knows, all right, the curriculum. What you may have is something on paper. You may have all the notes and so on, but that is not the curriculum. The curriculum, I think after a few readings of this book already, you will know that what the curriculum is very much in the head of the master teacher, the teacher himself. It's not something to be just given, to another person or another institution just like that. Maybe we've been seeing too many of these Chinese kung fu movies where they're always trying to steal manuals, and then after stealing a manual, and after that they become experts at the martial art that the manual is supposed to be teaching people. It doesn't happen that way. Okay? It doesn't happen that way. Secondly, also, it means that you know what the other institute is uh, going for. What is the goal? What is the objective of the other institute? The other institute may have their own teachers, they may have their own leaders, and they may have their own objectives. And it may not fit in with what your teacher has been teaching. Your teacher may have been a brilliant man, but he has his own group of students, his own objectives, which is specific to his group of students. So for you to want to share that also, It's just being presumptuous. Okay, right? And I think also on another level, the thing is that also your teacher may be teaching at a lower level than what that institute is teaching, perhaps, or the other way around, even. Do you want to embarrass either one of them? Is that your objective? I know you mean well. I know you mean well that you want to share and all that into your enthusiasm, but you must stop and think: is this the right thing to do? Just give a wholesale transfer of knowledge, and it's not actually knowledge; it's just information put down on a piece of paper, maybe, or in some slides, in some digital format. That's about it. So it's not like that. In the traditional circle of learning, especially learning by Islam, things are not transferred like that. Knowledge is not transferred like that. Okay, so you must know your objectives, you must know your students, and the students and the objectives are very much related. And the teacher is the one who decides whether it is for him to transfer it to somebody or not. Okay, and usually they are careful because it might imply that the teacher thinks that his work is very high, all right, and then the other side, the other party which is going to receive it may look small, or the teacher may actually not be very high, and the other party may think, oops, this teacher's teaching is actually not suitable for my students. My students are of a higher level, the demands are higher. So these are things that we have to consider. We have to be careful when we want to pass on teachings and so on from whoever we learn from. Try to understand, not just at the superficial level about what has been covered. Try to understand also the objectives, the specific students that it's targeted at, the level that the student is at, and so on. And this is consistent with what the Prophet Muhammad SAW said, right? Teach according to their level. So you don't just transfer, you teach according to the level of the student. And you're supposed also, according to the other hadith, is that you're supposed to make it easy, don't make it difficult. So make it easy for who? For the students, right? So the material that has been prepared by your teacher may have been suitable for the students that he had at the time, the students that he had in front of him, but it may not be suitable for students in another context. So we have to be mindful about all these things. So don't let our enthusiasm get the better of us by wanting to transfer things just like that. Okay. This is more akin to the modern thinking about knowledge management. You just put all the information somewhere in a cloud-based computer system somewhere, all right? And then you think you can transfer the organizational knowledge to the next echelon or the next generation of workers or leaders in that organization, right? What they are transferring is not knowledge, but it's just actually information, right? So, so he's saying that, so Hakim Husseini's message to this man was basically that uh, it's not for me to, he very politely said that it's not for me to bring this man into my group because it can actually harm this man. And it may actually also, how do you say, uh, lower his standing because now he may be of a higher level. And if I were to teach according to what I've been teaching my students all this while, then it is too low for him. So why do you want to force him to come to my class? Okay. I know you say you didn't force, you're just making a recommendation, but that's what in effect you're trying to tell me, right? So he doesn't like that. Okay, and then on top of that, if he attends to this Dilawar, who is supposed to be a Sufi of great standing, then the standards will be too high for his students, and then his students will be neglected. They'll be lost. They can't follow the discussion. Okay, so he said that the journey to adulthood begins with infancy. And if you have a class of infants, you know what their destination will be. This does not mean that you can take on a single extra student who in any case would need the association of an entire class of his contemporaries. to enable him to make the requisite progress. There you are. Teach according to their level. So don't make recommendations to teachers because for one, that would mean that you're trying to say that you're as good as the teacher and you know what's good for him to add on to his course, what is good for him to make his course even better. So are you a teacher? So if you're not a teacher, then be very careful about this. So those are some of my reflection about this story entitled Bravery, found in the book Thinkers of the East. I hope you have learned something. I hope you found it useful, and um, and and I hope you will also apply this in your life when you are a student. No matter how enthusiastic we are about a certain teacher, don't go overboard with it. Okay, just make the best of our learning with that teacher. Benefit from him as much as we can, but don't go overboard and start recommending him to other people. Okay? This method may have been suitable for you, but it may not be suitable for others. So with that, I end this sharing. Again, I hope you have enjoyed it also, in addition to learning something from it. So I look forward to seeing you again in the next chapter of the reading of this book, Thinkers of the East. I hope you, if you enjoy it, you will consider subscribing to the channel and maybe even ring the bell down there, all right, so that you know whenever I post another addition to this channel, then you'll be kept up to date. So I'll see you again, inshallah.